I was Sean Martin, spacefarer, trader, ship owner, adventurer, and a complete jerk idiot. I traded my life savings and every single thing I had for a beautiful little freighter with automated systems that could be crewed by a single person, namely me, from a Draziel ship refurbisher. I named it the Lucky Star. Yep, I did that. Did I mention that I was an idiot? By the second trip, I started to think I had been had. By the third, I knew it. By the fourth, I wound up watching hypertube videos about repairing a wonky reactor. While drifting with no power in a dead system I was using to avoid transit tolls because I had no money. Turns out that running a tramp trader costs a lot more than my romantic, overly optimistic projections accounted for. Have I mentioned that I am an idiot yet? By the way, you haven't truly lived until you've had that pleasure. I managed to somehow make a profit on that run, almost all of which went into getting my ship running, not space-worthy, not safe, running. However, I did manage to buy a few pallets of toasters. Yep, good old-fashioned toasters that have been around longer than fusion. I was actually a little excited. Bread in one form or another was the only sustenance I could afford, and toasting it was the only way it had some texture and flavor. A toaster made it a lot easier than using a laser descaler. I also may or may not have agreed to weld a few dozen kilos of hers under the deck plates. Yep, I was now Sean Martin, sort of spacefarer, failed trader, proud owner of a piece of shoot, idiot, and now drug smuggler into one of the least tolerant systems for that sort of thing. I was still an adventurer, though. By the way, adventuring. Don't do it. And thus began the final flight of the aptly misnamed Lucky Star. About halfway into the trip, Lucky decided to fall apart. Actually fall apart. It's not a figure of speech. It turns out that baling wire is not the recommended filler rod for welding hole plating, no matter how shiny you make it. If I ever meet up with that Draziel again, I will shove my foot somewhere it shouldn't fit. Oh, it worked great until I hit a fluctuation in the density of interstellar gas. I still don't know where all that helium came from. That should have been just fine, but my shields were also refurbished, and it whacked them a bit too hard. Did I mention I had taken to deviating from recommended routes to avoid tolls? And now cargo scans? In space, nobody can hear you be a dumbass. Anyway, when the shields got whacked, the plates started falling off. For the less technically inclined out there, this isn't good. It is, in fact, the opposite of good. The shields were still going wonky, and interstellar gas started eating my ship. When you are moving at warp speed, hydrogen atoms are like ball bearings and helium. Bowling orb, freaking bowling orb. The plates held up like a champ. When those cheap ace welds failed, they left perfectly intact. I really liked having whole plates. It was nice. Well, I was now Sean Martin. Dead meat? A lot less of a mouthful, but that mouth was about to be treated an all-you-can-eat bowling ball buffet. My lifespan was now measured in minutes, but there was an inhabited system that I could maybe reach before I was part of the lovely marinara that enrobed the flying spaghetti monster, the Meliner system. Uttering a prayer to his noodly goodness, I made for it. I didn't dare risk the ort. Just the stellar wind stripped my outer shield away completely, and what was left of the hull was going to go bye-bye. Thank the noodles that the outer electromag deflector worked just well enough, so that the inner crew compartment shield protected me, a few vital systems, and a surprisingly decent battery bank held at least long enough for me to make it to sublight close enough to be captured by a star I couldn't even see and not go zipping off into space. Again, for the non-spacefarer out there, that is not a good thing. You really want to avoid that. I guess those were original parts, and that Draziel didn't refurbish them. Otherwise, that would have been the end right there. The Lucky Star was gone. I mean, completely gone. It didn't even have time to explode. It just went poof. It didn't even make a noise as it left, just like my dad. It was gone, leaving me in a nice little Easter egg of polished metal. You might not know this, but the stellar wind is one heck of a buffing wheel. You could see your face in it. Fortunately, another original, non-Draziel touch component was the FTL emergency beacon. It wasn't a true communication system, but it could send and receive space Morse code, a crude but efficient language that used symbols instead of words. It was the only truly universal language, and one of the first things I learned in space school. Besides the standard, I really jerk up this time. Please save me. I could send a few kilobytes. You heard me right, kilobytes. The more pulses, the more battery you consume. Fortunately, when you are literally sending words by the byte every minute or so, the self-contained batteries will last much longer than you will. Taking comfort in the fact that I stopped being a smuggler a few nanoseconds ago, I ate one of my special gummies from home. My career was so short I didn't have time to run out, and kicked back to await my fate. Okay, it might have been more than one. The main computer was dead. It was, you guessed it, a refurbished system, and the 2-credit power supply failed during one surge or another. The backup was bare bones, no frills, cheap as the Draziel could buy, and get the ship certified model, and also fried. That Draziel had better pray that I never see it again. I did, however, still have the navigation system, which does have some information about the thousands and thousands of inhabited systems in the galaxy. So, while waiting, I looked up the system I had been marooned in. There was nothing besides how to get there, and that was it. All other categories were either unknown or not applicable. Great. It was a goddamn island system. Of course it was. Why wouldn't it be? A lot of systems were part of the greater galactic community and engaged in economic and cultural trade and whatnot. However, just as many don't. Some are isolationist xenophobes. Some are so violent or otherwise unpleasant that they have been exiled to their home system. Some are just so strange and alien that they can't be understood or dealt with. Others are cool. They just don't feel like bothering with all that exploration and trade nonsense. I mean, you have everything you could possibly want in your home system to be fat, dumb, and happy until your star blows up. As I have said, adventuring sucks. Some races are smart enough to know that. Stay home, and don't wind up in a freaking polished egg floating around someone else's or cloud. I could see the wisdom in that right about then. Again, the noodle touched me because this island system was home to the podlips, really cool little guys. They are sort of a leathery centipede slash centaur slash snail. Fortunately for me, they are as kind as they are funny looking. I immediately got a response from a mining outpost on a nice fat chunk of space sugar. Yes, that does exist. That was currently the base ingredient for a very popular confection back on Kablan, what they call their homeworld. Comet Happies, sprinkled with stardust. Strangely enough, Kablan is their world for pickle. Even they don't know why it's called that. The current guess is that the sea is salty, and sea brine makes the best pickles. The little guys do love their pickles. They pickle things the same way we cook them. Anyhow, they sent a cargo shuttle out to me right away and scooped up all that was left of my lucky ship. After I was hauled aboard, we had a frustrating, long, and painful conversation using space Morse code, the only language we shared. It's great for simple standard messages, but that monstrosity of hieroglyphics gets really obscure when you venture away from standard shipping, trading, and distress messages. Every ship, even mine, has a hard copy microdot dictionary and viewer stowed on the bridge somewhere. You have a digital one, of course, but that's on the ship's computer, the one not working. Yeah, looking up each obscure word was just about as fun as you would think. Eventually, we found out that the atmosphere in the ship was a bit of a problem. The oxygen was too low, and there wasn't enough CO2 for me to notice. I would pace out and eventually die, blissfully unaware that there was ever a problem. Such issues are far from uncommon out there, so it wasn't a surprise. In fact, we were all quite pleased that things were that simple. The little crawlers had an oxygen concentrator ready to go before I arrived, and it was already pumping out oxygen at the right concentration. I didn't even need a mask. A little tube and nose clip did the trick. They even went out of their way to hit up the stupefying labyrinth of data that was the hypernet. You need advanced AI to find anything in that roiling maze of info, and had their AI make a translator. It was a hodgepodge of processors and a GUI ripped out of some mining equipment and the size of a lunchbox, but it worked like a champ. That wasn't cheap. You know how it is. The chunks of data sent to your system's local net are free, or whatever you pay for internet, but getting real-time access to a hypernet transmitter isn't. You had better hope that interstellar data is part of your plan, or that you have a spare kidney to sell. So, the mining station just doing that on their own was really cool of them. It wasn't enough to hurt a mining company, but it was still going out of its way and paying a few $1,000. They also scrapped some perfectly good equipment to make the thing. Podlips are like that, great little dudes. If you ever run into one, say hecko. They are just the best. As I said, they were an island system, well off the beaten path. There were no super rare minerals, and nothing about the place was so unusual as to attract tourists. They were very happily self-sufficient and had no real interest in trade either. The only outsiders that ever visited were the occasional explorer, a soon-to-be disappointed tramp trader, or people who needed emergency supplies and repairs. I later found out that they barely had a paragraph in the best galactic guides. It basically said they were nice and that's about it. While they weren't on a trade route, they were close enough that idiots like myself would sometimes literally drop by. However, there are few that are both stupid enough need to stop and lucky enough to get there. Fortunately, both stupid and lucky are racial traits of ours. Noodle be praised. For the luck, I mean. Since I was the only alien to enter their system in years, my arrival drew quite the crowd at the mining station, all with their personal communicators out to record the event. YouTube is a nearly universal development among sapient species, and I was worth a lot of views. And I, of course, was now thoroughly stoned, perfect for first contact. Yep, humanity couldn't have chosen a better ambassador. Have I mentioned that I'm an idiot yet? They first tried to contact me via a few standard formats, but any antennas, sensors, or anything else was blasted away by the cosmos, and the emergency beacon was only good for Morse code. Eventually, they just attached some speakers and microphones to the outside of the egg. They were a mining station with plenty of sonic transducers and sensors, and they knew how to use them. It only took them a minute or so. Hecko? I heard in a weird, synthetic voice. Whoa, you can talk? I mean, I know you can talk, but you can talk. Shoot. I mean, untranslatable this. This is Becky Quirrell. Your name's Becky. Hi, Becky. You may call me Becky if you wish. Hi, Becky. Giggle. Yep. First contact couldn't be going any better. Sorry, Earth, but you brought this on yourself. I'll figure out how it's your fault later. Untranslatable. I could hear a lot of alien voices outside, and the poor translator was just a lunchbox trying its best. I later found that they used an actual meal container for the housing. A few moments later, the noises subsided. Untranslatable. Untranslatable. Yes, we have established my name. I am the superintendent of this mining outpost. Digging a hole. Diggy hole. Untranslatable. Yes, that's basically what we do. May I have your name? It's Sean, but you can't have it. It's mine. Okay, I was really baked. Hey, you go through what I did and have gummies on hand. Besides, you brought this on yourself, reason to be determined later. That strange noise exploded as all of the little dudes started screeching. Untranslated. Hecko, I'm the station's artificial intelligence. That is laughter. It took a while for the noise to stop. Cough, Hecko, Sean. Welcome to Meliner. We are the Podlip. We express condolences for your ship's destruction and happiness for your survival. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that too. Laughter. We detect no hatch. Am I correct in believing that we are going to cut you out? Please be gentle. It's my first time. Apparently that concept works for the Podlips because all heck broke loose. They were literally screaming. Yeah, I know I'm using literally a lot, but I stand by my decision. These literal things are actually literal. After recovering, the Podlip extracted me in short order. As soon as I emerged, I smiled and said, Hecko, we're reaching out to you concerning your starship warranty. They laughed so hard a few of them peed. Interesting thing about the different intelligent races out there is that they all develop differently, think different thoughts, have different values, and generally look at the universe in different ways, sometimes with different senses. In galactic society, different systems do specialize in different products and tech. Trade is quite profitable. However, the biggest commodity is culture and knowledge. A groundbreaking discovery for one race is something that another race knew before they harnessed steam. Maybe while they were napping flint when it came to philosophy or mathematics. Galactic trade made this knowledge available to all, and that triggered more development and more discoveries as each race looked at the new knowledge differently, and that created more. You get the point. Islands do get some of this because most can at least communicate via FTL, but they often have gaps, especially cultural ones. In the case of the Podlips, it was dad jokes and other human stupidity, something for which humanity is notorious in some sectors. I was an instant PodTube sensation, with my first contact gaining more views than there were Podlips by several times over, Most watched it many times. This led to the miners asking for more. As I said before, I had stupid in abundance and was happy to share, especially since they were letting me stay with them until I could hitch a ride on a sugar transport. That space caramel is really good. I still love the stuff. Dad jokes, knock-knock jokes, and the like would nearly kill them. Are you working hard or hardly working? Translated perfectly and was the height of humor. It became a universal greeting overnight. Well, before I could even hitch a ride with the next shipment, talent agents started flooding my DMs. With some excellent advice from Becky, a really great guy, I was able to get a good lawyer who helped me out a lot. The next week, I had my own YouTube channel, podcast, and all that good stuff. Now, I'm Sean Martin, content creator, comedian, and multimillionaire. I'm now standing backstage in a coliseum that seats 50,000 podlips, all squirming with anticipation as I start my first world tour. There isn't a single empty seat, or weird little spoon thing they use. The crowd falls silent as a local celebrity steps out and says, "Without further delay, here's Sean Martin." The crowd explodes with cheers as I walk on stage, and then expectantly falls silent as I make the traditional gesture of greeting, or as best as I can do it. Hecko everybody. I just flew in from Calishore. And boy are my arms tired. The crowd shouts in unison. I grin. Life is as stupid as I am. Knock knock. Who's there?